Before release, in a live stream, a dev speaking on behalf of Modern Warfare made a comment about the multiplayer maps. He said that this year, the team really focused on creating an environment for newcomers. He said they wanted to give bad players a, and I quote, safe space to feel as though they're good at the game. He said they wanted to design the map so that the new players could camp somewhere, sit in one place, and learn the mechanics, how to look up and down, how to aim, that each kill they'd get through camping would make them want to get better, and eventually, in turn, they would. He was asked after saying this if this approach would hurt hardcore or more adept players. He said he wasn't sure, but that's not the goal. They want newcomers to have a good time while still letting the hardcore enjoy themselves too. So, you, the viewer, after hearing all of that, who do you think it sounds like Modern Warfare is most concerned with? I actually really like Modern Warfare. Mechanically, it is near perfect. Its campaign is excellent, Spec Ops scratches a co-op itch, and as of right now, it is a meaty and unhindered package. If you want to know more, the review is live on this channel, but I made something very clear in my review. The maps, the explosives, and the camping are out of hand. Just a week later, the entire industry has come to the same conclusion. They're worse than out of hand. They're awful. I'm not a pro COD player. I play COD every year for around 150 hours each year. I'm somewhere in between casual and hardcore, which makes it even more glaring when it becomes so easy for someone like me to notice these flaws. So let's break down what's happening here and why so many people are annoyed, from the perspective of a guy who just happens to enjoy COD each year. This is the Azir Cave map. It isn't the worst map in the game, but there's this building. It's right here, that sits at an impasse between the A and C flags. If I take the shrapnel perk, which I'm going to use throughout this video to make my points, I can place claymores here and here and look at every position I can then cover without budging. I basically have the entire middle of the map covered from one window. I can go prone here instead and place a claymore here in front of the door and just lie down and cover this B exit for as long as I want to, with it being highly unlikely that me in the shadows is going to be spotted and killed before I get the jump on anybody coming out of this cave. You know what's funny about this building? I'd rather do this all day than play, say, Piccadilly. Piccadilly is an almost humorously inept bit of map design in practically every game mode. It isn't just campers galore, it's basically a requirement to camp to survive if you aren't playing something like Headquarters. With the single exception of sprinting in a long circle around the map, you are so enormously exposed by attempting to head to B flag or cross the map in any lane that it's borderline impossible with a set of sure shooters opposing you to move out of that tiny circle around the map at all. Piccadilly is chaos, and not organized chaos, simply chaos. Grenades spam across the map, campers in tight corners, the objectives become a total afterthought. But I think to understand why this is happening, we have to look at what a good COD map has always done well before we look at the worst of what Modern Warfare has to offer. Gunfight maps are kind of like tiny microcosms of COD's 3-lane map design. On an ideal map, these lanes would act as encounter opportunities. I can go one of 3 directions, with the expectation that along the way I can expect engagement. The middle of the map, or the sides, often represent some sort of verticality, where the map becomes a bit more dynamic and presents more opportunities to traverse and reach my destination. Throughout that process, I can expect to spawn on one side of the map or the other, away from the enemy team so as to maintain a balance throughout the entirety of the match. Almost every game mode in COD comes down to a fight for territory amongst these 3 lanes, one team pushing through to the other's spawn or flag, and vice versa, all the while balancing explosives so that they cannot be used as overly aggressive path deniers, i.e. I should be cautious turning this corner, but not be afraid to turn this corner, and never, ever should I feel like there's no way for me to flank or approach my enemy, anywhere outside of a spawn point. Within this specific structure, big chaotic maps become fine for faster, more chaotic movements, like in Advanced Warfare, whereas more refined and cover-focused maps are better for slower gameplay. Now let's talk about Modern Warfare, which for some reason lands right in the middle of those two things, and let's talk about this vent. This vent kind of represents a lot of what's wrong with Modern Warfare's map design. There are 2 entry points to this vent, one coming from C and one through the door next to the B flag. All of you that have played Modern Warfare know exactly where this vent is. The vent combines two of the game's biggest problems: incredibly overpowered explosives and camping. This isn't the first vent in a Call of Duty map. Black Ops 4 had a vent or two, but they all placed you in an obstructive vantage point, or made you relatively vulnerable given players' faster movements. But because of how slow Modern Warfare is, you're essentially invincible here if you play your cards right. I've had matches where I've literally gone 24-0 without having to leave the vent once. By placing a claymore around this corner, and again using the shrapnel perk, an enemy coming from behind will die before seeing it or you. And you have the drop in every single person coming in through either door, who will not have a chance to respond before you take them out. By the way, one of those two doors is placed directly next to B flag. This location is not an out-of-the-way spot on the map. If your field upgrade is an ammo crate, you can sit in there all match, replenishing your ammo, replenishing your claymores, and with shrapnel you can place claymores in both entrances and just rack up the kills. Problematically, this encourages players to chase kill streaks as opposed to playing the objective, which should be the opposite function of any map. Modern Warfare is filled with these locations, and while I actually like the design of most maps aesthetically, what's become clear within a week of players beginning to better understand these maps is that it isn't fun to play. Here's another, albeit less obnoxious example. I can sit up here, place a claymore at the only entrance, and just wait. All game, and while I'm more exposed here, I absolutely have less of an incentive to play objectives or leave than I would to simply just rack up kills here. Part of the problem is that there's so much exposed space in these maps. Here, for example, if I tried to walk out of this building and cross this street or cross this little courtyard, look how many directions I am exposed from. Look how many windows and doors and stairs I can be hit from. Just look at where B flag is placed. It is impossible for me to get to B flag without being shot at by 90 different people. Camping becomes the priority because there's almost no way to exit one of these locations without putting yourself at immense risk. And sure, skilled players won't need to do these things or utilize these camping methods, but their existence really lessens the fun for everybody playing in the match. And it's worth pointing out that this is something that pro players have already corroborated on multiple occasions when it comes to Modern Warfare. What is objectively not fun is having entire portions of maps be essentially off limits because you know it's a prime spot for camping. Some will argue this is strategic positioning. I'd argue instead that these features of the maps offer players a crutch that doesn't make them better, but instead encourages bad habits and selfish play. While trying to create a safe space, all the Modern Warfare developers have done is create maps that actually encourage bad habits. And worse yet, make it impossible for players to grow or get better. But there's more. There's another problem that is exacerbating these maps' issues. Within all of this chaos is a spawning issue that the map design doesn't seem to be making super solvable. In the fight for position and territory in a COD match, a death should mean something. Often it's the loss of what can be viewed as a chess piece, or in a MOBA, a player in a team fight. You want as a designer to make a death meaningful by forcing them to spawn far away enough from the action and objective to act as a negative reinforcement technique. If you die, you'll be out of the action for a period of time and unable to help your team. But you don't want to spawn them so far away as to completely take the player out of the fray entirely for more than, say, 15 to 30 seconds. However, these maps are so strangely laid out and objectives so oddly placed that COD's spawning system is failing way too often when it comes to accomplishing these tasks. Spawn camping isn't just in Modern Warfare, it is Modern Warfare. I cannot tell you how many times in a single match I have spawned directly in front of or behind an enemy, or 5 feet away, or right around the corner from one. It seems like 10 to 15% of my engagements each match are coming within 3 to 4 seconds of me spawning. This is bad. It does not teach new players the importance of their deaths. In fact, it makes those deaths feel all the more meaningless when they're rewarded directly after spawning with another often 1v1 or 2v2 encounter. If I'm not being removed from the action, what is my penalty for dying? It also means that playing the objective gets much harder because you're unable to leave spawn with any speed due to fear of being immediately buried again. In short, spawn camping has indeed existed in plenty of Call of Duty games. Yet what other Call of Duty games had going for it were better, more well-designed maps that offset some of these issues. It is a battle that simply shouldn't be raging within COD's spawning mechanics, especially not on these maps. But because of the sheer randomness of these spawning mechanics, it often becomes all the more enticing to camp near or around a known spawn point and simply wait. And it becomes a far too productive strategy. But it isn't all bad. What is so unfortunate about all of this is that mechanically, again, COD works so well. It is a graceful dance of smooth FPS mechanics and symbiotic weapon handling that comes together to create one of the weightiest and in many ways best feeling Call of Duty games this generation has seen. Its 2v2 mode is probably the best playable articulation of these mechanics. It is tense, it's strategy bound, and its slow pace works perfectly for its small, cover-focused maps. All of which, again, utilize tiny versions of COD's more traditional 3-lane map design, and all of which manage to feel diverse and interesting despite clearly being built utilizing the same principles. It's proof that every COD studio knows they have something special with their map design, and it's strange that this juxtaposition to the main multiplayer maps exists. It's strange that in the same game, they felt the need to innovate on that one thing that I had never seen people ask for: map design. It's this half step that's not working for anybody. Sure, there's been hits and misses with maps in the past, not every map has worked, but it wasn't because the team forgot what it meant to create a good map. It was because its quirks and idiosyncrasies didn't sit well with players in that particular game. Modern Warfare is a total abandonment of everything it seemed Activision and its devs knew they didn't need to change. Look, I like a lot of maps in this game. I like their design, I like their secrets, I like their aesthetic, but far too many of them simply do not work within the confines of the game's new pace. I'm not a pro player or a massive COD fan, and that means that if I'm able to feel as though I can identify what should be nuanced issues, that so many others must be able to identify them as well. For the first few days, things weren't so bad because players were still feeling things out. But it only took less than a week for the game to devolve into a Michael Bay camping production. The maps are cool, they are new, they are interesting, but the camping, the lethals, the spawning are all making them an exercise in stress. Not fun. The maps were one of my only primary complaints when the game launched. I liked them, I thought they were cool, but something fell off. What is concerning today is I'm just not sure that the problem is going to be fixed. Modern Warfare was marketed as a gritty return to realistic and brutal warfare. Seems strange then that they go so far out of their way to build a game that lowers its goals to make one group of people feel good about themselves. It's kind of antithetical to everything the rest of the game represents. Maybe there simply shouldn't be a safe space when it comes to war. Well guys, that is it for today's video. As always, I want to know what you think. Do you like the maps of Modern Warfare? Do you hate them? Are you interested in seeing more of these kind of maps in the future? See if they can refine it and make it better? Or do you want to see them simply return with a DLC to traditional 3-lane design? Do you want to see the DLC be new maps at all? Or do you just want to see them take what worked here and throw in old maps that we know already worked and play on those instead? And most importantly, are you enjoying the rest of Call of Duty, the campaign, Spec Ops? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you have not yet done so, press subscribe as well. That'll make sure you don't miss any videos, and that little bell next to the subscribe button, that makes sure that you actually get the videos when they come out. That's all that little bell does. So if you press that little bell, you'll actually be notified when the videos on this channel come out. So subscribe to the little bell, and until next time, guys, I'm out.